Welcome, everyone. This is CG Spectrum College and Apprenti, and we are going to talk today in this webinar about how to break into the games industry as a QA tester. So let's get started here. I am your host. My name is Maxine Schnepf, and I'm CG Spectrum's Career Development Manager. And my job at CG Spectrum is to basically help students find jobs. So I help them stand out, break into the film and games industries. I also give sort of an insider's perspective into the hiring process and what you can expect. And I do so because I have a background in the visual effects industry. So I've worked on some blockbuster movies like Blade Runner 2049. I've worked on a couple of Star Wars films, a couple of Marvel films. You can check out my IMDb page. If you look at my name, I'm the only Maxine Schnepf in visual effects, so it's pretty easy to find me. But I'm really excited today to also, Oscar is saying legit. Thank you, Oscar. I'm really excited to introduce some of our other panelists here today and talk a little bit more about how to get a job specifically in games via the route of being a QA tester. What is a QA tester? You're going to learn about that today too, and how you can get your start. So just a little bit about our schedule today. So you'll be meeting our panel. That's myself, Maxine Schnepf. We also have Scott Bayless with us today and Taylor Warmkessel, who's joining us from Apprenti. Hey, Taylor. We'll also be talking about CG Spectrum. So if you're not familiar with the school, I'll be talking a little bit more about who we are, what we do here at CG Spectrum, and what you can expect from our school. We'll also give you a little bit of an introduction to Apprenti and what their organization does and how they can help you. We'll also talk about QA software training. What is it? And how you can use that as a career path to your dream job. We'll also be talking about how to break into the games industry and some new courses that CG Spectrum is offering, our ISTQB courses. It's a mouthful, but we'll talk about exactly what that means and how that can help you. And then at the end, I'll also be talking about some pathways. So how CG Spectrum can help you with your career path, how Apprenti can help you sort of figure out your dream job and get you on the right track. So yeah, we have a lot to cover today. I'm really excited. So let's get started. So first, I'll just give a little bit of a breakdown about what CG Spectrum is. So CG Spectrum is an online college that specializes in video games, animation, and visual effects. And we help people in the digital creative universe get trained. So we have a bunch of different vocational courses ranging from game design, game programming, virtual production is one of our newest courses, this ISTQB course, which we're going to be talking about today. Very excited to launch this. We'll be explaining what that's all about. And we also have other courses ranging from digital painting and concept art to Houdini effects, nuke compositing. We also have 3D modeling, animation, both 2D and 3D. So we have a lot to offer here at CG Spectrum. And we've been around for a while. So we've been around for over 10 years now. We've just celebrated our 10-year milestone, I believe, earlier this year. Maybe it was last year. Time is flying. And we've been fully online that whole time. So way before COVID, way before the pandemic, before online schooling became super popular, we've been doing it for a while. We have over 2,000 alumni all over the world. And we also now have over 170 film and game mentors. So these are the people who are teaching you. So the way that CG Spectrum works is that rather than having full-time teaching staff, we actually employ mentors. So these are people who are currently working in the film and games industry. And so you're learning and getting support, mentorship, technical support from people who are actually working within the games industry. We offer small class sizes, so only 1 to 4 people, or you can do a one-on-one course with your mentor. And so you know that you're learning from the best. So rather than just having a regular teacher, you're learning game design from someone who works at a place like Ubisoft, or you're learning 3D animation from someone who works at Disney or Pixar. And so you're really learning from people who fully understand the industry. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we specialize. We also have an amazing online community where you can connect with people from over 90 countries. So our mentors are located all over the world, and also our students are located all over the world. We can see here today in the chat how many people we have internationally joining us. And so our CG Spectrum community is just like that. You're getting to talk to and collaborate with people from all over the world. It's really special. And something I'm very proud of as a career development manager, we have an 80% job success rate. So that means that our graduates are really being set up to start their careers on the right foot. And we're always trying to help people make it into their dream job and get started in their career path. Really exciting. And we're also sharing some links in the chat. So if you're wondering, a little bit more about how our system works, how our classes work, and get to know some of our mentors, you can check out our website, cgspectrum.com. So next up, we have Scott Bayless. I'd like to introduce Scott. He is one of my coworkers here at CG Spectrum. He is the manager of the game design program. Scott, let us know a little bit about yourself and your background here today.
Well, thanks, Maxine. So, hey guys, it's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be talking to you guys about QA. So my background actually goes back now, gosh, almost 45 years. I spent about a decade in the defense business, mostly working as a test engineer, which is one of the reasons that I feel kind of a special connection to what we're talking about today. I spent a lot of time around, especially software QA people. And even back then, I came to realize pretty quickly that people in QA learn things about how software gets made that they're not going to learn any other way. And it turns out that that's true with games as well. So about 30 years ago, I moved into games first as an engineer and then as a producer. Actually, one of my first contributions to the game business was a little bit of code that ended up in Sonic 2. So I had done some technology work for Sega of America, and Nakasan found out about a compression algorithm that I came up with and wanted to include it in Sonic 2. So that was one of my first contributions to games. But since then, I've gone on to be involved in a lot of big projects, worked for Microsoft for several years, helped launch the original Xbox, ran the James Bond franchise at Electronic Arts for quite a while, and then eventually ended up at Capcom, which was just tremendously fun because I got to work with franchises like Street Fighter and Devil May Cry. It was just a really amazing experience. So I'm excited to be here with you guys today, and can't wait to hear what kind of questions you might have to ask me.
Thank you so much, Scott. Moving on to our next panelist, we have here Taylor Wormkessel. Hello, Taylor. Thank you for joining us today. Taylor is the Apprenti Program Coordinator. Taylor, let us know a little bit about yourself and how Apprenti can help.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maxine. Hello again. My name is Taylor Wormkessel. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a program coordinator here at Apprenti. I'm actually based out of Austin, Texas. But my job here at Apprenti is to source, recruit, interview potential candidates for our upcoming apprenticeship opportunities. And then once selected as an apprentice, I would then continue to follow along in the apprentice journey and provide support to our apprentices as they make their way through all stages of our program. I am here as a resource for our apprentices and would love to answer questions later on as we go on in the presentation here. But just about how to be considered for a specific gaming opportunity that we do have at Apprenti, how to be considered for that. My contact information is here on this slide, so please jot it down and reach out. I would love to chat about this and any other questions that you have. But I also want to dive into kind of what Apprenti does here as well. So if we want to jump into our Apprenti mission and vision, I can kind of explain what Apprenti does. But who is Apprenti? So as I said, I'm a program coordinator here, but our mission at our organization is to bridge the tech talent and diversity gaps by adapting the apprenticeship model to meet evolving workforce needs. Apprenti is igniting a new paradigm to develop untapped talent and strengthen the tech ecosystem. So really what we do here at Apprenti is to create alternative pathways to help our employer partners access tech talent and help organizations address the digital skills shortages as well. We also aim to provide economic mobility to underrepresented groups by training and placing diverse tech talent in tech careers. The tech industry is seeking to diversify its workforce, and Apprenti is actively recruiting women, people of color, veterans, and people with disabilities, although anyone is really eligible to apply. So please, everyone. And Apprenti is also an inaugural Department of Labor Apprenticeship Ambassador. And we serve on the advisory council for Apprenticeship for America. As you probably all know, tech is the fastest growing industry in the world. Our unique apprenticeship program puts you on a straightforward, step-by-step, fast track towards your dream job. So later on, I'll get into an upcoming opportunity that we have in the gaming industry, which is why we're all here today. But that's a little bit more about Apprenti. So thank you. And I can pass it along next.
All righty. So next up we have Scott is going to tell us a little bit more about what what QA software training is and what to expect from this new ISTQB course and what all of that even stands for. Take it away, Scott.
Thanks, Maxine. So just to get started, as you can see, the acronym ISTQB stands for International Software Testing Qualification Board. So what is that? It's a nonprofit that is responsible for qualifying people in software QA. And that matters because as the software industry has grown up, it's become more and more important to be consistent about how QA gets done. I mean, way back in the day when I was just getting started in games, QA basically consisted of going to various corners of the company and finding people who weren't doing anything else at that point in time and saying, go play the game and tell us if you find a problem. It was really ad hoc, and we did ship product, but it wasn't always a perfect solution. As the industry has gotten more mature, not just in games, but in software development in general, it's become obvious that we need to teach people how to test and what to look for when they're testing, how to talk about what they find. There's a discipline to it that is just as important as any other piece of software development. And that's what the ISTQB is about. And that's why we teach certifications from ISTQB. The other thing that's happening is that especially the big video game publishers are realizing that people who are certified generally are better qualified and do a better job when they get into their position doing QA. Even if all they're doing is playing the game, the techniques that they learn on the way to certification have a big impact. And because everybody's using a common language and because the methods are consistent, it makes the process of doing QA a lot more predictable and a lot more effective. And so a lot of the big publishers are now actually actively looking for people with certifications. And that's another reason we decided to focus our training in that way. The program that we put together at CG Spectrum actually offers a total of 3 certifications. The first one is what they call CTFL, which stands for Certified Tester Foundation Level. And then we offer an Agile Tester certification. And then finally, we offer a Test Analyst certification. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward in the conversation.
So the interesting thing about being a QA tester is it's often not something that most people see as a dream job. right? Usually you're trying to go on to bigger and better things. Maybe you want to be a games producer or a game programmer, or a game designer. There's so many roles out there. I know a lot of people in the chat have been talking even about art related roles, like in being an environment artist. And the thing is that a lot of those roles require a little bit of experience. So this kind of position, being a QA tester, is really important because it's not only a way for a lot of these companies to operate, because at the end of the day, you can't create a game just with a whole bunch of game designers. You need support staff, you need people talking to the community, you need people testing everything, because programmers and game designers, they have other tasks on their plate. And so the QC process or being a QA tester is really important because it's a way for people to double check the game, make sure things are running smoothly, make sure things are fun to play, and make sure that the players, once they're actually able to buy the game, have as smooth of a process playing it and enjoying it as possible. So it's super, super vital in order to create and ship all of these games. And it's just one of the most common ways to actually get into the industry. And so it's a way to get experience, but also, when you start working at these studios, being in some of these other roles really helps you understand how the industry works as a whole, and it helps you understand the role of different departments and different people in the industry, and even where one company might sit in the bigger picture of an industry. And so it allows you to not only get experience that you can add to your resume and add to your LinkedIn page and help you get better jobs in the future, but also just gives you information. School can only take you so far at the end of the day. We try to get you as far into that as possible when it comes to the knowledge and the training that we provide, but getting your, feet into a chair, actually getting into a role and working with these studios is how that's going to really set you up for your career down the line. I know that happened to me as well. One of my first jobs in the industry, I wasn't necessarily a QA tester, but I had an entry-level career way before I had worked on some of those bigger movies and TV shows I mentioned. I was an office manager. That was an entry-level role for me. I was picking up phones. It was not a dream job. It's not what I went to school for, but it really helped me to understand the bigger picture of the industry, how some of these studios operate, and it really helped to level up my career. I know that we've also have some students and mentors. One of our mentors, the head of the concept art and digital painting course here at CG Spectrum, Brandon Reimken, he started as a QA tester in the games industry, and now he is like a very well-known and celebrated and successful concept artist. So even for more art related roles, I know a lot of people are here for art related roles and they're thinking about getting their foot in the door. Being a concept artist is extremely competitive, and it's often not always the first job that people have when they finish school. And so being a QA tester is a great way to get that foot in the door while you keep upgrading your portfolio and getting your work to a better level, and getting some of that experience. It really helps that, a lot of job descriptions ask for like 1 to 2 shipped games, in order to get that role. This is a way that you can get some of that experience. And I think, Scott, you also have some experience.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of examples. And in fact, I'm kind of an example because I was actually working in the defense biz when somebody who worked in QA called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to work on a game?" That's literally how I entered the game business. I mean, it was through a personal contact in QA. But and Maxine, I'm sure you know this as well. Inside the game business, about 90% of the people who are hired into positions in games actually are hired from inside the industry. So being in is super important. And it turns out that QA is a great place to start being inside the industry because it gives you an insight into virtually every component of what it takes to make a game. You learn a lot about what not to do in making a game, which turns out to be super valuable. And you also learn a lot about how the pieces fit together because you actually are actively participating in that process of building the game from nothing into something amazing. A good friend of mine one of the best producers I've ever worked with is somebody that started in QA. He was working as a bartender in Eugene, Oregon. And some of the guys from a local studio used to go to that bar once in a while, and they got chatting with him and they said, yeah, you know what, you should apply for a job as a tester. So he did. And about 25 years later, he was a vice president at Activision. So that's not an unusual story. That kind of stuff happens all the time. It's amazing how many people start in QA. And because they learn so much about how games get made, they become super valuable no matter what their personal talents really are. And you're right, Maxine, it can be concept art, it can be 3D modeling, it can be animation. I've known audio people that started in QA. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's just a great place to get your feet in.
Yeah, and one more thing I just wanted to add to that is I find that people who, you know, have experience in different roles, especially like starting from the bottom in a place like QA, you have a greater appreciation for people in all sorts of departments. So when you eventually get into one of those elevated roles, like you said, what was it, like vice president of Activision?
Yeah, he was a VP at Activision.
Yeah. So once you get into those bigger roles, you have people in those leading roles, and that could be you one day, you know, who actually understand what it's like to be a QA tester. They actually understand what it's like to work in all these different departments, because, you know, you often hear these horror stories of like bad management or people that don't understand what like everyone else is dealing with, or, you know, producers that don't understand how long it takes to do something because they've never done that before themselves, and they don't really understand the process. This is a way that can, you know, not only help your career, but it can help you be a better manager in the future. I know that seems like such a long way away to be thinking about like the later end or the latter end of your career, and what that might mean to you, and where you could end up. You might not know where you're going to end up at this point. I know I didn't, but it's that kind of insight that helps you be a more well-rounded games professional. Wherever you end up in the end, it helps you really understand how to work with people well, how to take feedback, and just have a better understanding of all the different departments and roles within a studio. But let's move on and just talk a little bit more about CG Spectrum's ISTQB courses and what you can sort of expect with these new courses. So let us know, Scott. I know that this was built by you.
Yeah, well, actually built partly by me. I've actually worked with some other professionals who are working in QA right now today, which has been a great experience. As I said earlier, there are 3 courses that we've put together. There's a foundation level course, there's an agile course, and there's a test analyst course. All of these lead to certifications. They are all structured more or less the same way. We use small class sizes. We use mentors who are working professionals in QA to mentor those classes. And generally, the way these are put together is there is a combination of video content and written content that you use to learn the material. And then we do a couple of mentor Q&As per week with that class. So you can ask questions and you can kick ideas around and generally kind of iron out anything that you're not really clear on. Because when you get to the end of one of these courses, our objective is to get you through the certification test first time out. And currently our success rate is actually quite high. We've seen really great results, and I'm really pleased to see how well that's gone. So, you know, what do you learn? Well, in the foundation level course, you're learning a couple of things that are really important, starting with just the language of testing. You need to be able to talk about this stuff in a consistent way so that when you talk about a defect, other people know what you mean. You learn things like the difference between a root cause, which is what actually went wrong somewhere that leads to a bug, the difference between that and a failure, which is a symptom. It's not actually the thing that caused the problem. It's just what you see when something goes sideways. And so you start getting into the details of how this stuff works and what those methodologies really are. We teach these courses in a non-game specific way. And that's on purpose, because it leaves you the latitude to focus in a variety of places. And certainly we are very committed to supporting the game industry, but software QA is a thing everywhere. Google employs enormous numbers of software QA people. So does Facebook. So does Amazon. So do all the game studios. So it's a job that's very much in demand, and it's becoming more and more a professional position, as opposed to, let's just go hire a bunch of college kids and throw pizza at them and hope it works out. We don't do that anymore. So yeah, that's essentially what we've done with these courses. So I think I already talked about most of this. It is entirely online. We do include the cost of the ISTQB certification exam as part of the course. So the objective there is to make this as seamless as possible. What we don't want to do is complicate the process for people who take the course. You go through the course, you get the training, you get to spend time with a professional QA tester, making sure that you really understand the material, and then you go straight into the certification and pass that certification, and you get to carry that certification around with you forever. And we think that's a pretty great way to get people started in QA. So yeah, let's talk about CTFL and Agile. The heart of the foundation level course is learning the essential information you need to have to be able to be a tester in a team. So you learn how to talk about test, you learn how test integrates into other teams. One of the things you find as a tester is that you're touching almost everything in a project. If you're working on a game as a tester, you're likely to be talking to people who are involved in modeling, you're talking to people who are involved in writing scripts, you're talking to people who are writing code. Everything touches QA. And as a consequence, as a tester, you have to be able to speak about what you're seeing and how things are progressing in testing in ways that are effective with the teams that you're dealing with. So a lot of being a tester isn't just about writing up bugs, it's about being able to talk to people in an effective way. We also spend a fair amount of time on helping people understand how Agile methodologies actually work, and the difference between a theoretical Agile project and a real world one. Because one of the things you'll find with Agile is that a lot of people know how to say Agile, but when it comes to actually doing it, almost every single project is different. And so as an Agile tester, as somebody who's being a tester in an Agile project, you have to learn to be super adaptable. And so we try to teach people about how to do that. What are the strategies you can use to be successful in an Agile project? And in fact, what we find is, and this is my experience as a game guy and having done literally dozens and dozens of projects, the test guys who understand Agile kind of at a deep level are often the organizing principle in a project. It's people in test who actually have a really profound effect on how well Agile works, because they're the ones who are validating everything that's done. Every sprint, there's a validation point, and test is responsible for ensuring that that validation actually plays out correctly. So in a very real way, test is kind of the filter for whether Agile works or not.
Before Scott continues, like if any of this stuff is going over your head, you're like, what the heck is he talking about? What is Agile? This is exactly what you're going to learn in the course, so we're starting from the ground up. And so if this is something you're not familiar with at all, don't worry. That's what we're here to teach you. But
I'm glad you
please go
pointed
ahead,
that
Scott.
out, Maxine, because I sometimes veer off into sounding a little too technical, but the reality is we do teach you everything you need to know to be successful. The test analyst course is a longer course. It's a 2-week course, and it's very high intensity. It's more demanding in terms of your understanding of the material, because at this point, as a test analyst, you're learning how to create tests, you're learning how to analyze a problem or a product and devise a test strategy. It's a much more responsible position. So you're no longer just testing the product and communicating about how the testing has gone. you're in many cases actually designing the tests that will be applied to a product. And that's exciting. And it's actually really interesting work. I can tell you from personal experience that this is very interesting work in a lot of ways. If you're sort of technically inclined, there are lots of interesting puzzles to solve when you're working as a test analyst. I'll be honest with you, this course is fairly demanding, and you can't just take this course. You actually have to go through the previous certifications to get to this one, because if you haven't passed those certifications, you're not ready for this one. So it's a more advanced course. It's more demanding, but the payoff is that you come out the other side with certification that really means something. And you know, I've spent time talking recently to some of the big service organizations that supply testers to every game studio in the industry. And what they're telling me is this certification is something they really value, because they've come to realize that somebody who can pass the certification, they really do know their stuff. And they can walk right into a position and be effective and help make the software they're working on better more quickly. And that's a really powerful thing. So
yeah, I feel like one of the biggest kind of sticking points I've heard from a lot of studios, like since I've been in this position, talking to studios about like what they're looking for in junior talent. And this is one of the biggest issues I hear from students as well. They're like, there's no junior positions. They're looking for people with experience. And when talking to different studios, what I found is it takes a lot of effort, which equals time and money, to actually train people. You know, it requires a more senior level professional to, you're going to shadow them every day. They're going to have to work a little bit slower so that you can, follow along. They're going to be talking to you all day, showing you around. And all of this stuff kind of takes time, which always kind of translates to money for these companies. And so it's really difficult for them to hire a lot of juniors because they just don't have the right training. School can take you so far, but a lot of it does still require some more hands-on training or more vocational training, something a little bit more specific. And that's kind of what we specialize in here at CG Spectrum, is giving you way more specific training from people who are actually doing it, from people like Scott, who have actually worked in the games industry and have this background, have this history. They're, like you said, communicating with people in the industry, trying to figure out, okay, what do you actually need in a QA tester? What little, units should we include? How can we train these people so that they can be less of a burden and can hit the ground running when they get started? So just talking a little bit more about some career pathways. This course or these courses are a sort of structured learning opportunity. And it's very similar to our other courses at CG Spectrum, where we are creating content specifically for the jobs that you're hoping to apply for and move into in the future. So some different ways to kind of get into the industry. If you want to work in games, you can study at CG Spectrum. So we have a number of different courses, both creative, technical, and everything in between that you can consider depending on your interests. And we're going to share some links at the end of this webinar, but we actually do have a career pathways page on our website that you can check out, that gives you a little bit more information about some of the different roles out there and some of the different ways that you can sort of get into those roles. Another way that you can get in is by joining Apprenti. So you can apply at Apprenti and look into some of their apprenticeship programs and opportunities. We'll be talking a little bit more about that. And the nice thing about this is that, doing one of these courses, especially the new ISTQB course, it gives you some very specific credentials. And these are credentials that game studios that we've been talking to are very interested in. They understand what it means, and they understand that this is a way to ensure that they're getting some really solid junior talent that's going to be, like I said, less of a burden on them. And they'll, understand that you're ready to hit the ground running. I know that most of the students I talk to and everyone here has taken the time to join us to get their career started, to get some more information. So I can tell just by the fact that, you've decided to be here today for this webinar, that you're taking your career seriously. So you've already taken the first step, and, working towards your dream job. And this certification and these credentials is just another way to show that you are taking things seriously. You're not just applying for jobs, that you're not eligible for, and that you really understand all of the requirements that they're asking for and all the skills that they expect. So these credentials you can include on your resume, you can include them on your LinkedIn page, and they can help you get some work experience as well. And when you combine those elements, a good portfolio, a good body of work, whether it's technical or creative, these credentials and some work experience, you're going to have a really good shot at getting the job that you actually want after this. So these are some of the ways that you can sort of work into your dream job. Again, like I said before, we have some more information about some different career pathways on our website. So please check that out later on your own time when you have a chance, depending on which specific field you want to get into, whether it's creative or technical. Next is signing up. You're here already. The next thing you can do is to get a little bit more information. So if you sign up today, you can check out our ISTQB certification courses. So that's specific to, you wanting to be a QA tester. This is something you could do after a CG Spectrum course, or maybe you do it before. It's something that will complement any additional training that you're getting at the school. And so that includes the software testing foundations course, and then also the advanced software testing course. Those are some pretty short courses too. So it's a great thing to consider to complement some existing learning that you might already be doing. So those of you here who are already our students, amazing. This will be a nice little cherry on top from the course that you're already taking. But if you're not with us already, here are some of the courses that we're currently offering that can really help to kickstart your career in games. So first we have the game design program. So we have an intro to game design course, and then also the full 9-month game design course that you can take after the introduction. We also have our game programming courses. So same thing, it starts with an intro to game programming. If you have zero programming experience, you're going to want to start there. Sometimes we do allow people to go straight into the game programming course if they have some programming background. We assess this on a case-by-case basis. So feel free to apply at the link down below, and we can always take a look. If you have some sort of existing portfolio or experience, we can take a look at that and see if you can skip ahead. But generally, most people start with the Intro to Programming course first. We also have a Foundations of Game Art course. So if you're someone who is interested in the more creative side of things, the more art side of things, I know some people in the chat were talking about this already, that is a great option, especially if you don't have much artistic experience. That's a great starting point. And usually people branch off after that and either specialize in animation or 3D modeling, environments, characters. So it's a good starting point that can then lead you to one of our other courses. And finally, one of our newest courses is our virtual production course. Series of courses. We have a couple of them. So first is our intro to real-time 3D and virtual production. If you have zero experience at all, great starting point. I would definitely recommend that you start there. And it starts by giving you some of the basics of how to use Unreal, how to set up a scene. You'll also learn a little bit of rigging, character creation, and this is extremely vital. If you don't have any experience doing any of those things and you're interested in real-time 3D and virtual production, you must start with the intro course. It is jam-packed with information. But the nice thing about these courses is even after the intro, we're seeing some amazing student work, some really sought after skills. Because this is one of our newest courses, we've really tried to fill it with the most sought after skills in the industry right now. A lot of studios I've been talking to are looking for technical artists. They're looking for environment artists. They're looking for people who can model environments procedurally, virtual production, being able to use Unreal. These are all skills that are highly, highly sought after. So if you're looking to get a job ASAP, but you're not really sure what you want to do, I would definitely suggest the virtual production course or the foundations course to kind of get started and wrap your head around some things. That leads you into the full 9-month real-time 3D and virtual production course. By the end of that, you will have some amazing work for your demo reel and portfolio to showcase. And we're already, we're only just getting some initial graduates from this course now because it's so new. We started it last year in September. Just about a year ago is when we launched this program. And so we're finally getting some graduates out of it. And a lot of them are already getting job offers. Some of them even got job offers after term 1 or term 2 of this program because they're showcasing work that is really in line with what the expectations are in the industry right now. It's really cool. I'm really excited about that course and to see some of our other graduates. And then finally, we have the Unreal Connectors course. So this is very similar to the real-time 3D and virtual production course, except it is condensed. And so we've created this specifically for professionals who already have some experience within the industry, and they're looking to branch out and upskill themselves specifically in virtual production. So we don't recommend this for complete beginners. This is usually for people who already have some experience in the industry working as a creative in some sort of way. And this is a great way, sort of like a boot camp, to really kickstart their career in a different direction and learn some new things. It's much more intensive. So this is like a full-time course. It's 5 days a week that you're meeting with a mentor, extremely condensed. So I would only recommend this one if you have some previous experience. Another nice thing to note is that at CG Spectrum, we have monthly intakes. So you don't have to wait till December or then January to apply. Every month you can apply for one of these courses. So if you're not ready right now, you can always consider applying next month to then start in October or November or December or January. It's totally up to you. So we're available around the clock. And you can visit cgspectrum.com/apply-now to sign up if you're interested. Next, we're going to hear a little bit more from Taylor about the Apprenti program. So Taylor, tell us a little bit more about how Apprenti can help our students and some people interested in working in games.
Yeah, well, that all sounds really, really awesome. But yes, so our apprenticeship program, I kind of provided a really high level background into what Apprenti is, but we are actually currently recruiting for quality assurance or QA testers in gaming. So this opportunity that we have would include this 3-week training of this fast track training with CG Spectrum. That training would include the certifications that Scott just talked about, that Scott Maxine just talked about, the foundation, ISTQB foundations, and the certified agile tester as well. So you would do this training. All of the certification exams are included, and the training is provided at no cost for all qualified Apprenti applicants. So you would do this training, and then after the training with CG Spectrum, this opportunity would provide a full-time employment opportunity after that as well. Not only a full-time employment, but also full-time employed and benefited, which is awesome. So again, our website is down there at the bottom, as you can see. I have my contact info on the next slide, so please jot that down and feel free to reach out to learn more about this specific opportunity. It's truly a great way to get the training and experience needed to succeed in this field. And then having the opportunity to actually go in and apply what you learned in those trainings in the employment, in an actual office, and to apply all of that and to continue to build onto those skills and continue to learn with an actual company is just awesome. So to do all of this, so who qualifies, so hopefully this is all sounding good and caught your attention, but who qualifies? So a great thing about our program is that no degree or any prior technical experience is required. None of that is required for our Apprenti program. All you have to do is be eligible to work in the US and to be 18 years or older. That's literally it. But for this QA tester opportunity, we are recruiting now on a rolling basis. So please apply at our Apprenti website. you will see that we do have you complete an assessment. And once you complete that, there will be a referral code. Here's my contact info. I would really prefer if you would reach out to me so I can tell you all about it, and kind of answer any questions on a more individual basis. But really happy to answer more questions as well during the Q&A. But as I said, the first step is just to visit our website, apply, get into our system so that you can be eligible for this opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor. And before we move on to our Q&A, we're almost done. Oh my God, time is flying. So we have like a full half hour to do a Q&A. We have quite a few questions already. So if you have any more questions, please continue to include them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. But in addition to Taylor's contact information, which I shared before here, there's her email, and there's also the website, apprenticareers.org. But also, if you're interested in learning more about CG Spectrum's course offerings and how we can help you, this is how to find us online. So we are all over the place. You can check out some more learning content, free content on YouTube. So if you search CG Spectrum on YouTube, that's where we are. We're also same handle on Instagram if you want to check out some of our student work. We're also on Facebook if you want to check us out on Facebook and ask some questions. LinkedIn, we're on LinkedIn, CG Spectrum. And you can also see some of our student work. We're always reposting and sharing student work. We're even on ArtStation. So if you're someone who's more on the creative side of things, you can check us out on ArtStation, where we share even more student work. We're on Twitter. And last but not least, if you have any questions after the webinar today and we didn't get a chance to answer it, or you thought of something after the fact and we're no longer live, then you can always email us hello@cgspectrum.com, and we'll be happy to help you out and point you in the right direction. So why don't we move on to our Q&A? I'm so excited. Let's get the whole panel together. I'm going to stop sharing and we can start with some questions. Just to get started here, our first question for the day is, how can I apply specifically for the Testronic Labs opportunity with Apprenti and CG Spectrum?
To apply for the Testronic Labs opportunity, the one that I just mentioned that we're currently recruiting for the QA tester role, first step, again, would just be to visit our website and apply to Apprenti. Take our assessment. This will get you into our database so we can consider you for this opportunity. And specifically for Testronic Labs, we are looking primarily for New Orleans or Baton Rouge based candidates. So we are currently considered based out of that area. So that's kind of who's eligible right now. That's where we're looking, because they are going to be working on site at the Testronic Labs office. So they do want someone that is able to go into that office every day for that experience. But yeah, so if you're interested and this sounds fun and exciting to you, please reach out, apply at Apprenti, visit that website, and especially if you're in the New Orleans and Baton Rouge area as well.
Awesome. Thank you. We have another question here from Stacy, who's asking, when does the Apprenti program start? I think you said so, but we're going to say it again. When does it start?
Great question. Well, it is on a rolling basis. However, we are currently recruiting, and we are going to be doing interviews actually next Friday for our second cohort. So if you are interested in doing this, that's why I really urge you to get yourself in our system sooner than later. Although we are trying to have other opportunities, kind of like I said, on a rolling basis, month to month. That first one that we're recruiting for now is coming up really soon. So please apply, get in. And even if this one doesn't align with your timeline, or if the timeline is not good for you, we're going to be continuing to recruit for this. So we'll also have other opportunities. But for this one, the interview is going to be happening on the 9th of September. So please, if you are interested, get those applications in and reach out.
Another question here from Francisco. This is another one for you, Taylor. Is Apprenti only for the video games industry, or do you cover other industries as well?
So we are all tech. We actually have so many different occupations that we train for. Gaming, QA tester, or software test manager are two of them for gaming specifically, but we have software developer roles, cybersecurity roles, all different kinds. So, and that's all listed on our website as well, all the different occupations that we train for. Great question.
Yeah, I mean, we've been mostly focusing on games here because that's what CG Spectrum specializes in. But yeah, Apprenti does all sorts of things, Francisco and anyone else who's watching. We have another one from the chat here, but I'm just going to remind everyone to please, if you have any questions, add them to the Q&A section of Zoom. So at the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A button. That's where you should add your question. But Katie has a question here in the chat. And Katie is asking, it says you can take the eligibility test 3 times. So there is a test. Will they use the highest score, or does your next score cancel out the previous one?
The highest scores. We will use the highest scores, multiple attempts, and so that's not a worry. But yeah, we have multiple attempts, as I said, and yeah, we'll take the highest scores from all of those and total them together. So
we have another question from Oscar. Oscar is asking, do you need to be highly technical to be a QA tester? Maybe Scott can answer this one.
It's a really good question. The answer is a little bit yes and kind of no. And what I mean by that is that you don't need to be a software engineer to be a successful tester. But you do need to have a little bit of technical savvy to be able to understand what the software is doing and understand how to deal with the issues you run into. So, I would say anybody who is comfortably computer conversant, you're fine. Right.
So if you're helping your dad like figure out the Wi-Fi situation on their iPad,
you're good.
if your parents come to you every time asking for help with their cell phone, you're probably the one that's going to be good.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. We have another question from earlier today in the presentation. Renee is asking, do I need any special education to apply as a QA tester, or will it just help, but it's not necessary or needed?
No, I don't think there's really any special education that you need to bring to the table. I mean, if you were applying for what they call an SDET, which is a software testing engineering position, yeah, you need to have some specialized training. But when you're coming in, no, you don't need special education. You do need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to write things down in a way that people understand. You need to be able to read instructions for things you're trying to test. But beyond that, no, it's actually a great place to start when you don't have a lot of experience with anything.
Oscar is asking here, I've read in a lot of places that starting out as a QA tester is a great entry point to game development or narrative design, which is Oscar's ultimate goal. Do you think that's right?
I think that's
I'm going to say yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's different, but yes, it is a good place to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question here. This is kind of a similar question from Sammy. Would having the ISTQB certification be worth having if my ultimate goal is to become a creative director?
I would say yes, to the extent that it gets you taken seriously. So if you show up at Ubisoft and you have a certification and there are other people who are looking at the same position who don't have certifications, you have an edge. And it gives you an opportunity to get in the door. After that, it matters for credibility as a tester. But if ultimately you wind up as a game director, no, the certification probably won't matter at that point. But it got you into the process, and that's what's really important.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, I think you need a solid portfolio and like experience working on other games, indie games, AAA games. That's how you become a creative director, is really getting that experience. But in order to get that experience, is that catch-22. How do I get experience if every job is asking me for 1 to 4 years of experience? This ISTQB course can help lead you down that path by starting as a QA tester, and then you move on from there into some more creative roles. Okay, what else do we have here? Elena is asking, I'm still quite behind on my hardware due to financial reasons and in the process of hopefully upgrading soon. So they're talking with their computer. But what kind of equipment is needed for this position at a minimum?
For the QA course?
Yes, I'm assuming the QA course.
If you can connect to the internet and you can play video, you're good.
Nice.
The machine requirements for this course are actually quite low, because you're not actually going to be running software testing tools or anything like that. You're watching videos, you're talking to people, and so you can do it with just a basic laptop.
Yeah, in most jobs, if you actually get hired full-time and not as a freelancer, they will be sending you equipment, or you'll be going to a studio and working with their computers. Or
Yeah.
if you're working remotely, I've heard of this happening a lot with some of my friends and people in the industry. They'll actually send you hardware. So they'll deliver a computer to your house if they don't want you to work in office, and you'll be working on their computer. And this is not just for, speed reasons and stuff like that, but it's also for security reasons. They want to be able to have the right kind of security on your machine, on your desktop, and also so that they can make any changes or like remotely log in if they have to, if you're having some technical issues. So usually these studios will give you their own hardware to use. So once you get a job, you're kind of good after that. I don't know if this happened to you, Scott, but for like half of my life, like working in the industry, I never updated my laptop. I had this old MacBook for years because once I started working in the industry, I barely ever used my own laptop at home anymore. Like I was always using company computers. And so when I eventually started working at CG Spectrum and like doing some freelance work and stuff on the side, I was like, oh my God, I need to buy a new laptop now. Like because I've had a company computer for so long. So yeah, not something that you have to worry about, Elena. Marina is asking, what is the expected, this is a good question. What is the expected weekly time commitment for the ISTQB Software Testing Foundations course? In your opinion, is it doable while working full time?
It is, but it's going to range around 20 hours a week. Everybody's a little different. The amount of time you have to invest personally is going to be different from somebody else's, but it's designed to be about 20 hours.
So, I mean, and this goes for also all of our CG Spectrum courses, except for the foundations courses require a little bit more of a time commitment because you're learning all these multiple different fields at one time. Same with our Unreal Connectors course. If you remember earlier, I was talking about the virtual production course and how there's that like fast-tracked one. That one, because it is 5 days a week, we do expect you to be able to dedicate more time. It's like about 40 hours per week. It's pretty much like a full-time job. But the rest of our CG Spectrum courses, we have a lot of students who are, working part-time or full-time. We have parents who are taking our courses, and so they have other responsibilities. So you do have to, just try to find some time to dedicate. Some people can dedicate a little bit more time and be able to practice some things. And then other people, might be a little bit trickier for you if you have a full-time job, but it's definitely still possible. So another question that we have here, let's see, from Elijah. Elijah is asking, Elijah is a keener. Elijah's asking, would I be able to take this course and another at the same time? I can answer this at least on the CG Spectrum side. Yes. So short answer is yes. But again, it does come down to how much time you have. So you don't want to be diluting yourself and doing two courses at like, half your capacity and not really grasping everything properly. So it for a lot of people, it does help to like do one course and then follow up with another one after they graduate. But if you don't have a lot of other responsibilities, if you're not doing a full-time or a part-time job at the same time, you have less like life responsibilities, you have more free time to dedicate, then you can absolutely take two courses at once. We have quite a few students who are currently doing that at CG Spectrum. And I believe with this ISTQB course or courses, that should be possible as well, because they're both quite short. They're only a couple of weeks long. So it should be no problem. If you're already in one of our courses, you can absolutely take one of these on the side. Great question, Elijah. So Elijah is also asking, what kind of PC specs do you recommend someone has to be successful with the program? So again, it depends on what program you're talking about. If you're thinking of the ISTQB QA tester course, we just mentioned very, very low specs required for that. But if you're interested in one of our other CG Spectrum courses, this does vary. So you can find out more information on our website about what PC specifications we recommend. And if for whatever reason you can't find it on our website, you can always email us with this question, hello@cgspectrum.com, and we can help you out depending on which path you're thinking of taking. All right, we have another question here from John. John is asking, I'm from Africa. Can I still apply for the apprentice program?
And that is a great question. So currently at this time, you do need to have a US work authorization to be eligible for this program. So at this time, doesn't mean that's not going to change in the future, but we do need to have that eligibility to work in the United States at this time. Thank you for that question.
And that goes for anyone else who's maybe not in Africa, but other parts of the world. If you're in Europe or Asia, unfortunately, yes, the apprentice program will not be available to you. It is only available to US-based citizens or people with a US work permit, like Taylor said. But John, you can still apply for any one of the CG Spectrum courses that we mentioned earlier. So our school is still offered worldwide to anyone all over the world. I've worked with students who are located in Africa, so you wouldn't be the only one. And so you're still encouraged to sign up for one of our other courses. And hopefully we can offer something similar to that to everyone worldwide in the future. So someone is asking about enrollment inquiries, how long it takes to get answered. Usually we get back to people with anywhere between 1 day and 1 week. It depends on how busy we are and the volume of questions that we have. You should hear back from them shortly. So thank you for asking that, Damien. Next question is from Patrick, who is asking, what does QA typically look like at a small studio? What might you say is the minimum amount of people a QA team could have?
A really interesting question. So the answer is one. And I've seen that in small studios where there's literally one person who is doing QA. And in really small studios, it's not uncommon for that person to be doing something else as well. Because in a small dev team, the QA role may not be 100% all the time. So I've seen like a combination of community manager and QA. It really depends. Every small team is a little bit different. In medium-sized teams where you start getting into a more formal QA organization, it's not unusual to see that team size in the vicinity of half a dozen, give or take. It really, again, depends on the team, and it depends on the thing they're making. So it varies a lot. If you get into really big studios, those QA teams, not only are they quite a bit larger, but they are also actually much more specialized. So for example, when I was running a studio at Microsoft, I had multiple QA teams that specialized in certain kinds of testing. We had a usability team, we had a recon team, we had a certification team. All of those teams had different specialized roles. And that's pretty common across the game industry.
We have one question here from Katie asking, if I were to get the apprenticeship, would I still, and I see that Taylor's actually typing for Taylor.
No,
but I think we should answer this one live. Yeah,
Yes.
This is a really good question from Katie, who's asking, if I were to get the apprenticeship, would I still need to take the CG Spectrum courses? So you go ahead and then I can always add my little bit.
Okay, yeah. So for our apprenticeship program, the training and the employment, they kind of go hand in hand as part of our, as part of the apprenticeship. So the training would be required, but that would also be for the apprenticeship through Apprenti, it would be free for you. It would be no cost required for you through Apprenti. So great question, but yes, the training and then the employment would go hand in hand for a full apprenticeship model. And yeah, that is a great question. Thank you. I was just typing that answer out, but
no, it's all good. And the only thing I'll add to that, Katie, is it really depends on your career path. So yes, with the apprenticeship, you can totally go through it just through Apprenti, totally fine. But if you are interested in, let's say, eventually becoming a concept artist or a 3D modeler down the line, like after your QA experience and getting that apprenticeship, that's where one of the other CG Spectrum courses would be a good option for you, because you still would probably need some kind of creative or technical training, depending on the path you want to go down, in order to get into one of those other types of roles. But like we've learned before with one of our earlier questions, you can take our courses and still work part-time or full-time. So you can, even if you want, like if you want to do it the other way around, start with the apprenticeship, get a job. Some people, they're in a financial situation where they might need a job sooner rather than later. So this is a way that you can start, get your foot in the door in the industry. And then as you're working as a QA tester, you can take one of our CG Spectrum courses at the same time. And then you're already in a studio. It'll be easier for you to move up. You'll have people that you'll meet who you can talk to about career progression when you're at a studio. And so it'll be much easier to kind of work your way up. But remember, you got to manage your own time, make sure that you set aside time to learn all these extra things. It's not easy if you have a job, but it's totally possible. We have a lot of people who come to CG Spectrum with some who are currently working, or they're trying to upskill themselves in some kind of way. So we have another question here. Quick question. How many weeks is the QA program?
Each of the foundation level and Agile courses are a week apiece. And then the test analyst course is a 2-week course.
And one thing I will mention is that we also do have, if you haven't noticed already, we have Kyle McAllis, who is here in the background answering some questions. So if you've asked a question, and we still have about 20 minutes left to go, so we're good. We're gonna get through everything, I think. But if you've noticed that your question has like disappeared, or that we don't answer it, check out the answered tab in the Q&A section, because we've also been answering some questions via text. We've been like writing down some answers. So please check that out and see if your question has been answered manually by text. Okay, moving on. Someone is asking here, I'm going to say this live because I'm just not sure how to answer it. But someone is asking here, what frame rate is best for gameplay demos, 30 or 60 frames per second?
Faster is always better, but
faster is better.
It depends. I mean, it really does depend on the thing you're doing. But generally, yeah, the higher frame rates are a good thing. The question is, can you provide the visuals you want to provide at a particular frame rate? I mean, sometimes 60 frames a second is just not possible. You're trying to push too much stuff into the screen. And so it's always a trade-off.
Next one, Enzo is asking, hey, I have a question about working as a freelancer in the game industry. Is it possible for beginners to build experience and make some money doing it? I mean, I can get into this one. Yeah. Yes, I think so. The only thing I will say, though, I find that a lot of students sort of see freelancing as this sort of like in between thing that they can do between, going to school and taking some courses and before they get a job at a studio. And my one kind of word of caution here is that when you don't have any experience working in the industry and you don't have any connections yet, if you haven't been doing some networking, you could very well want to freelance and you could be available and say, look at me, I have a website and everything. But if nobody knows how to find you, if you don't have an audience, if you don't have a network who knows about you and who knows about your skills, it can be difficult to actually get work. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can get experience as a freelancer, like doing game jams, working on independent indie game projects. And these are some things I talk a lot about with my students. And that's one way that I support them in this industry, is showing them all the different ways that they can get some experience, especially if you're in like a more remote area where not a lot of studios exist. But I just want to kind of give you some caution there that it's not always the best like first job option in the industry. Oftentimes it's much better to kind of start at a studio if possible, because then you get some hands-on training, you're learning from other people in the industry, and you're actually learning like what it's like to actually work at a studio and complete a game and see all of the different parts. Whereas working as a freelancer, if you've never completed a game before, it's going to be really hard to start doing this all by yourself as a freelancer. So yes, it's possible, but in my opinion, it's not always the best first step, depending on what field you're interested in and what you're trying to do. Are there ways to do it? Of course, and I can help you out if you become one of our students. But I just think that a lot of students think that it's like the natural progression of like school, freelance, job, when in reality, it can be pretty hard to actually get paid work as a freelancer when you have zero experience and no connections in the industry yet. Next up, we have a question from Matthew, who's asking, I'm currently on the Intro to 3D Modeling course, and I'm struggling to find a job at the moment in the UK. Is it recommended getting into QA, and is there any opportunities for UK-based students? So as Taylor mentioned before, this specific apprenticeship program offered through Apprenti is unfortunately not available to you if you're in the UK. But that being said, considering a QA role and looking into those types of jobs is absolutely an option for you. So as you're going through your 3D modeling course, this is something you can try to do in tandem, like look for work while you're still in the course, or you can wait until you graduate. I'm not sure what you've been struggling with in terms of finding a job, and maybe if you reach out to me on Slack or send me an email directly, Matthew, if you're one of our CG Spectrum students, then I can maybe help you figure that out and see how I can help you. And we can talk about job hunting, and we can talk about, you know, what some entry-level roles are that you can consider, and maybe we can even do a little portfolio review and see what's happening. But if you're still in the intro course, there's a good chance that your portfolio might not be good enough to get a modeling job right away, because that's an introduction course. So it's an introduction. You're not going to be an expert right away, and you're probably not going to be job ready depending on your skill level and your portfolio. So usually you have to wait until you actually complete the course and work on a strong portfolio before you get a modeling job. But I'd be happy to talk to you about that one-on-one anytime. Lewis is asking, what level of ISTQB does it cover? Just the foundational?
So the answer to that question is foundation, but then also more advanced. So the CTFL certification and the Agile certification are both foundation level courses. And then the test analyst course is an intermediate level, more advanced course.
Next, we have a question from Christian, and it is directed directly to you, Scott. Christian is asking, you're on the hot seat. Okay. Christian is asking, while the Apprenti opportunity seems to be an on-location position, which we can confirm, at least specifically this QA tester position, it is. How common are remote opportunities for QA testers? And there's a follow-up question. Also, is this a position that can be done part-time? Could this be a good source of income while continuing other studies? And finally, a quick Google search. Christian, I love that you're looking this stuff up. This shows that you're like on the ball already. Finally, a quick Google search shows an average salary ranging from $44,000 to $129,000. What is a realistic pay that you can expect if you were able to secure a position?
There's a whole bunch of good questions.
So let's start with, how common are remote opportunities for QA testers?
So the answer is more common than they used to be, but it really depends. There are big QA teams at some of these large services companies in places like Toronto, for example, where they have 300 people who work in QA in a single location. Most of their work is actually remote, but they're all sitting together. And that happens a lot in QA. There are people who work even as freelancers, as remote testers. That tends not to happen as often in games, partly because if you're doing console development, for example, the testers need access to console development kits. And those are expensive and they're hard to move around. And so they tend to want to keep them in one spot. You can be successful finding QA work by remote testing PC software. And those jobs do exist, but they're a fairly small subset of the overall QA opportunities. So the answer is yes, there are some, but it's harder to find a remote gig, especially when you're just starting out, than it is to find a position, on site at a company. As far as part-time, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that happens a lot, especially one thing I think a lot of people don't realize about the game business, it is still somewhat seasonal. And right about now is when they start staffing up with QA people because they're getting ready for the holiday push. And so it's not unusual to be able to find an entry-level part-time QA position sort of this time in the year, because they need to staff up so they can ship product for the end of the year.
Finally, could this be a good source of income, and that salary range? Like, is that realistic? What can they expect? I mean, it's a pretty big range. I know
it's a big range. Yeah. So what that's telling you is that people who are very experienced and generally are in positions of responsibility, they're supervisors or managers or something like that, they get compensated pretty well. You know, if you move up the ranks in the QA organization, you'll find that you can actually make a pretty nice career out of it. You know, if you find it interesting, and some people do. I have a very good friend who ran the test team at one of the first studios I worked at, and he's now running the entire QA organization for a big medical company. And he stayed in QA. He loves it. It's been a passion for him through his whole career. So you can be well compensated. If you're just starting out, you're quite likely going to be looking at kind of minimum wage kind of position, depending on who you're dealing with and what the circumstances are. That's not unusual across the industry. So the 44,000, that's somebody who is somebody who's probably got a year of experience, and they're considered a capable tester. 44,000 is not unusual at all. It also, of course, depends on where you are. If you're working in California, you're going to get paid more. And if you're working in, Florida, you probably won't make as much. It just depends.
And one thing I will say, though, is I don't want people to get scared off by that, especially people who maybe have some previous experience in another industry and you're trying to like switch industries. It can be a little bit scary hearing the words minimum wage. And believe me, I feel you. I would love it if all of my students made a ton of money. But what I will say, though, is that this is where that experience part comes in. And so even if you're looking at something minimum wage, it's not going to be like that forever. And it's a way for you to get experience. So money is one thing. Yes, of course, money makes the world go round. We live in this society where you need to buy food to eat, you need to pay rent and so forth and pay your bills. I understand that. But in this industry, you really want to get that experience. And that's what's going to help propel you into those higher paid jobs that Scott was talking about. So it's not going to be forever. It's a stepping stone onto something bigger and better. And I have seen a lot of students or former students, alumni, who are moving up in their careers very quickly. I had one student who took one of the foundations courses. She's a 3D modeler. And within, I think she graduated, I want to say last year, beginning of 2021. And in, a year and a half, she is now making six figures. Not everyone can do that quickly. So that takes like a lot of effort. She's an amazing person, amazing artist, but it is possible. So it all depends on like the experience that you're getting, how you're really trying to contribute in your role, your portfolio, your body of work, how well you work within a team once you actually do get into a certain studio. So it is possible to move up into different roles, and some people even move up at a different company. So they might switch from one company to another. But yes, it is possible. I just don't want people to get scared off by that number. All right, we have one more question left. So this is your final call because we have just a few minutes left to finish this up. So if you have any other questions, please add them to the Q&A section. But I have one more here from Frosty, who is asking, are there any other entry-level jobs you could recommend in the games industry? So aside from QA tester, what are some other entry-level jobs that some people can start searching and looking into? Scott, do you have any answer? I know I have some, but you probably know better than me.
Yeah, well, no, it's a really interesting question. There are sort of project management jobs that come up, and it almost always requires some kind of experience in organizing or managing from previous gigs. But I've personally hired people into jobs like that, sort of associate producer or assistant producer positions, people who came out of another industry but had some experience being the organizing principle in a project. So that's one of the places you can kind of find your way in, even if you don't have any experience in games. As far as true entry level, where it's like, I've just never done anything, and this is my first attempt at finding a job. There aren't a whole lot in the game biz, and I think that's partly because of the nature of the game industry. It's an industry where there's a lot of pressure to perform, and so experience really matters. I mean, it matters a lot because you don't have a lot of time to bring somebody along who's just never done anything at all. Now, that's one of the reasons that QA is such a great place to get in, because you can come in with basically no experience at all, and if you've had a little bit of training, you can be productive, and that's really valued.
If you're looking for another way in, or like a way to get some experience or get noticed, I definitely recommend considering indie projects. So entering a game jam contest, like basically any way, like if you're finding, even for QA positions, you're not getting hired for some reason, if you don't choose to go through Apprenti and take our course and move into that direction with our assistants, something that you could consider is basically trying to prove that you know how to work with a team somehow. So obviously you're trying to learn your own thing, whether you're a programmer or an artist or whatever. But it's not just about doing your job. It's about learning how to work with other people. So any way that you can actually demonstrate that in a very specific way. So working on a game with other people, even creating like a singular game level, like some kind of concept for a game, but where you're actually working with other individuals. So any way that you can show that you have experience releasing something, even if it's not like a paid release, but you can actually download this game, you can play it, it's on a website. itch.io is a great website for that, where you can host. I'm going to share that in the chat here. That's a great website to check out, where you can host your own indie games. So a lot of people host their indie games on there. You can also sell and buy indie games on there. And there's also a community on that website where you can meet other people and collaborate with them on game jams or independent projects. So check that out. That's one of the many resources that myself and Scott and our mentors share with our students here at CG Spectrum when they're thinking about looking for work and how to get into the industry. So I talk to students about this a lot, like how to get experience when no one will give you experience. But yeah, QA tester is probably the best route. But if you're still looking for another way to kind of keep working and improving your portfolio, highly suggest that you consider collaborating with other people in some kind of way. It's not easy. It's really hard working with a team, especially when you're not being paid and there's no incentive like that, monetary incentive to do well. So it's stressful. But the thing is that these game studios, they understand that. They know that it's not easy to work with a team and to create a game, even if it's an indie game. But that's why they value that experience so much. So yeah, any way that you can do that. And there are so many other resources and websites and communities out there that you can consider. And if you're one of our students, I'd be happy to point you in the right direction for some of those places. I think we're all done here. It has been amazing meeting with everyone and hearing from our panelists. Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you so much, Scott. It's been amazing hearing about the industry and learning about some of these new courses that we're offering and how CG Spectrum is working with Testronics, with Apprenti. And also this new Testronics opportunity, specifically in the United States. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. We're all done here for today. This is recorded, so you can always watch it back. We'll be sharing a link. So if you've signed up for this webinar already via email, you will be getting the link in your inbox. And feel free to check us out, cgspectrum.com. We have a ton of free resources. We also host webinars periodically, just like this one. And we also have a podcast. So if you want to learn more about the industry and hear about it from people who actually work in the industry, I've been working with my colleague, Justin Molman, in our new podcast where we interview people who work in the industry. So if you like this webinar and hearing from Scott abroad and some of our experience, you're going to really love the podcast. So like and subscribe us on YouTube. We're also on all other podcast platforms where you can check us out. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and via email. Please email us hello@cgspectrum.com if you are interested in our courses. And you could also email Taylor. I believe we've already shared her email, but we're going to share it again here in the chat. We've already shared it here. So you can contact Taylor if you're interested in Apprenti and what they offer. And if you are a US-based individual, you can email Taylor at wormkessel@apprenticareers.org. And there's a lot more information at the Apprenti's website as well, apprenticareers.org. Check them out. Thank you everyone for joining. This has been amazing. So many good questions. I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you if you do decide to join CG Spectrum. And for all of you who are already our students, hello. Thank you. And have a lovely day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.